So hello everyone, good afternoon. I hope you've been enjoying the festival so far. We've been jumping around different topics, but that's the basic idea, to kind of keep you in the loop and finally see that everything is interconnected. So I'm joining in again to continue the conversation in regards to sustainable fashion. So if you were earlier with us here today, you'd know that we already talked about how the fashion industry is heavily linked to the impact that we can have when achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And whether or not we consider ourselves fashionistas or into fashion, if we are students or professionals, it doesn't matter the stage of life we're in, there's an impact on the way that we consume, and there's a change that we can make from our side of the chain per se. So as we also talked about, the issues in the fashion industry overlap so many things, whether it's gender equality, or also other things that relate to more social economic aspects of people and local communities. So there's not one approach that would be the perfect solution for everything. So some of us would opt to not buy anything new or shop secondhand, some conscious consumers who support local brands and so on. So as we look forward to different companies, networks, and designers who are working to give different options for us consumers to have a more conscious consumption, I'm really excited to invite to the stage two amazing speakers that we have today. So welcome Mariel, CEO and founder of the So Fashion World, and Bojana Drača, a zero waste designer. She's the creative director for Farrah Floyd. So welcome them now to the stage.
Hello.
Hi, Mariel.
Nice to see you again, Naek. Everybody, hi. Connecting from Sweden.
Great to have you here. And hi, Bojana, where are you joining us from?
From Brussels today.
Awesome. So I'm really excited as we continue the conversation. You both are related in different ways or in approaches to what is sustainable fashion per se. So maybe we can start with you, Bojana, if you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you, being part as a creative director in Farrah Floyd, are taking part in making this industry more sustainable.
So in 2012, I finished my master's in sustainability in fashion. And during this time, I already started working on my zero waste pattern making systems. And as soon as I finished, I started my brand, Farrah Floyd, and that's one of sustainable design strategies that I implemented into the brand. I also work with others, like using certified materials. I produce everything locally. I also try to play a bit with the emotional design, yeah, I also try to be as transparent as possible in everything that I do with my brand.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what about you, Mariel? Could you tell us more about the agency and how Slow Fashion World plays a part in here as well?
Well, this is the reason why I love to connect, because creatives are so incredible, like Bojana. I mean, the reason I started the Slow Fashion World was because I was so motivated and inspired to connect creatives around Latin America and Europe and exchange that creativity and that collaboration and turn it into a global community. I started once I moved to Sweden in 2010 when I did my master in international market with research and trying to connect my culture with the European sustainability mindset, especially in Sweden. As most know, sustainable fashion in Sweden is really moving forward in terms of technology and also in terms of environmentalism in fashion as well. So I merged those two experiences with Latin American culture and my trips, because before I was a flight attendant. And yeah, I started to connect.
¿Qué tal?
Ay, bien, ¿tú?
Bien, también acá.
No problem. We can.
Sí.
Grande.
Sorry, Bea and Roberto, we're hearing you here on the main stage. Give us a second.
No worries, I will.
Yes, so it's open. It's just I have to see what time does it start. Actually,
I can share my.
It should be open already. You go in. You see on the left you have stage, sessions, networking. So you go in the sessions area, and you find your session there. You just enter.
Okay, you have to start.
And share the screen, the video, the audio, and you're live.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to share my presentation, but that was not impossible.
Sorry, we had a little bit of technical issues. That's what happens when you use digital tools, but we've solved it so far. Sorry for the interruption,
Anyway,
Mariel.
No worries. I can continue telling. So during 2017, I decided to launch officially a slow fashion world in Madrid, together with other change makers. So the focus on sustainable fashion and slow fashion was collaboration community based on sustainability, innovation, and diversity inclusion. The important thing about sustainability is to talk about social and cultural aspects as well. So from that side, our company, which is communication, marketing, PR, wants to create a proposal for the world, and especially to empower change makers or encourage also creatives to continue growing their businesses and continue living a conscious lifestyle. So this is what basically the slow fashion world is doing since 2017 officially.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, one of the first things I would be interested in, I know you touched upon it a little bit, is because you both have different approaches. I know, Bojana, since you started, you focus directly on sustainability and fashion. For you, Mariel, you kind of link different experiences to kind of seeing how you can impact and bring your skills and also your culture into what you're doing. But did you have one specific moment where you were like, okay, this is the spark, this is what is motivating to actually be active and involved in proposing some sort of solution? So I don't know, Bojana, if you want to talk a little bit about your experience first.
And for me, actually, I was studying fashion and textile design in bachelor. And I really didn't like the idea of just making things that are gonna be gone in a few months, or, you know, it's like this fast fashion, 20 seasons a year. I really didn't like the idea. I was thinking about my whole process of making a product. It's not just making a product. There is a really long process before about designing the concept, and then putting all things together into the very long supply chain in order to have a product. And I really couldn't bear this idea that these products are so easily, cheaply bought and then worn, or not even worn, for a very short time and then discarded. So for a while, I even went away from fashion design, and I was doing more art installation and textiles. And then with my master's, I went back to fashion because I realized that actually things can be done differently. It's not just how they teach you in school, or there is a certain fashion industry idea that exists now, but it's also, I don't know for how long, and we can just try to find our own ways to do fashion and to make it more valuable.
Definitely. And what about for you, Mariel?
Yes, I've been saying around my trips in Latin America, I found the beauty of artisan work in this community, creating wonderful stuff, but there was a missing link there, and it was the communication and how to share their stories, both locally and around the world. So I decided to connect those links through studying international marketing in Sweden, and I moved in 2010 to develop an agency and see a way that I can link my work in fashion first, because I really love design, and I believe that sustainability is deeply rooted in our culture. Naek, so Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, Mexico were some of the countries that inspire me to connect creatives and to connect ideas so people can showcase their designs, because at the end, sustainability is both economical, it's environmental, and at the same time, it both has to be connected to each other. So that's basically what encouraged me. And also when I came to Sweden, as I repeated, the lifestyle and the way that the people mindset and startups and companies were working together towards sustainability encouraged me to say, hey, why not me? Why can I not link a community from Latin America and Europe and work together towards sustainable fashion? Because sustainability should be inclusive, and it should not be one side of the world. It has to enclose everybody, so no one is left behind, as the sustainable goals, the development goals say. So that's kind of my work. I want the slow fashion world to help and support the sustainable development goals 2030 through impact storytelling, to impact marketing, and to building a community for action.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think as well, I'm also, as Mariel, I'm part of Latin America. I'm from Honduras. And one of the first things that I noticed when I was moving into sustainability and fashion is the perception that in order to be a conscious consumer, it's a very exclusive market. It's usually unattainable. So it's really good that we have options and that we can kind of bring light and kind of educate people as well and see the options that they have according to their own background and where they're from. But that's amazing. Talking about this, and we're just seeing the different approaches and knowing that there's no one perfect solution of doing things, whether we're connecting people from different countries, that also means transportation costs and impact in that way, or part of the different impacts and in the different steps within the supply chain. But we also see an increase in the media and just in trends when it comes to sustainability in the fashion industry. But at the same time, that means that as a consumer, we tend to be a little bit more weary about how we trust and how we kind of see which are the actual brands that we want to support when it comes to sustainability. So for both of you who are actively communicating with consumers or trying to reach people who want to be conscious consumers, what do you think are the best practices for brands like yours to kind of be able to showcase their values to consumers that are usually wanting to know a little bit more about what goes behind the scenes of the products and so on? So Bojana, I don't know if you have any comments first.
Well, I have to say this is a bit of a problem for young designers to communicate how they do their job and how they run their brand. I talked a lot about it with my colleagues. Honestly, for me, I saw a big change since I opened my own store 2 years ago when I moved to Brussels from Berlin. It's really on a small scale, but I really see the difference because, as Mariel said before, storytelling, that's very important. And people like to hear it. And when you are in direct contact with your consumer, you can do that very easily. So yeah, there's different ways, but for me, okay, social media, my website, I also talk sometimes in events like this, different webinars, but I think really this like a very honest and transparent communication, it's the way to go, if you ask me.
Yeah, and for you, Mariel, I know you're in contact with a lot of brands in different spots. So what has been kind of the key things for you too?
Yeah, definitely. As Bojana says, it's really quite important to have that hybrid communication, both offline through stores and face-to-face interaction, and online through social media, website. But as long as you have your story correct, transparent, and traceable, it would be very easy to resonate with your community. Nowadays, customers are not customers anymore. They are your tribe. They are your ambassadors. They are your voice. So everything has to go towards that roadmap. As creatives, as consultants, as change makers, as active citizens, you need to build your story and resonate with your audience. And that's what we're working with. With creatives, we put them on the stage nowadays because it's so important that people connect why they're creating this brand, what are the values behind, and connect with that person in order to connect with the clothing. Because right now it's not a garment, it's something you value and it's an investment. We need to take the mindset of consumers of thinking this is an expense. No, this garment is an investment. This is something I would cherish for life. And for do that, stories matter. So what we do, for example, in Latin America, because it's everything is Europe center, US center, people want to have everything from above. What we try to do is to encourage local design by doing conscious talks and having designers telling the story and the inspiration. Also, here in Europe, we connect those aspects with culture, innovation, and we bring consumers to say, hey, this is something cool to wear, but at the same time, you're telling a story to the world and you're identifying yourself with something that makes sense and is transparent and is valuable. So they feel proud about it when they talk about a t-shirt that has been made locally that has been made fairer, so they connect with the brand values. So for us, it's such important to help brands, creators to learn how to communicate their stories. And also, nowadays in fashion, it's really important about digital activism. Actually, Carrie was talking about it in one of the sessions, and purpose. We have to really divide that, like a really purpose with an assessment, measurable. So it's not only telling a story just because of the luck of it. It has to have a strategy.
Yeah.
That's why we help people in the slow fashion world to have that strategy. Even stories have to mean something in the long term and has to mean together with your business model. And last but not least, active citizens can also join fashion and can also be encouraged by communicating and asking questions by, for example, campaigns demanding transparency. Have you seen the Remake Pay Up campaign, for example? That leads to a higher impact. So collective action is very important, and also finding your real purpose.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Mariel. Maybe for those that are not aware of the campaign, could you share a little bit about what that was?
Well, what I really loved about Remake is that this is the year of taking action and also showcasing real transparency. You know, after Fashion Revolution released their 2020 Transparency Index, there was a lot of promotions by retailers that were ranking first, second, and third, saying, "Oh, we are the most transparent, brand. Congratulations to us." No. Because consumers that are starting in this journey of educating and learning about sustainability, this can be really greenwashing or really wrong. So what started Remake was saying as well, they have used this work alongside, so I'm very admiring them. But and this I'm saying the pay up campaign, because most of the companies were not paying their employees, especially during pandemic times. Yeah. So they started to disclose, hey, no, wait, you are not transparent. Well, you are the least in that report. You shouldn't even be in that report. You should be like ranked high. So they started to call out retailers and trying to ask them for answers, because they were stopping orders, they were having stocks orders, and they stopped paying their garment workers. So Remake make a huge campaign, global campaign with influencers and everything, asking to pay up. So I recommend you to check the hashtag pay up campaign and Remake, because it was really wonderful to see how a purpose and how communication can lead to impact, because now the companies started to answer back, and not all of them, but some of them has started to disclose their wages, and some of them has paid their workers. So really collective action makes a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. I know that we shared the transparency index before, but if you are also interested, we're going to keep sharing different links on the chat for you to access afterwards. But definitely, I think you were touching on a point. I think that everybody was affected now during the pandemic, of course, and it also was an impact on economic profit. Obviously, there was an impact on smaller brands and the fashion sphere. So I just wanted to know, for you, Bojana, for example, during this time, what are the biggest changes that you've experienced, or like looking forward into the future? What kind of the things that you kind of expect or hope to see in the sustainable industry aspect?
Well, I have to say the situation is still a bit difficult and unclear. So I also, except having my own brand, I also sell around 20 sustainable jewelry, bag and clothing brands in my store. So I know it's kind of the same for everybody. We are all on the same boat, and we just need to find a way how to help each other. But also, I think maybe this was a bit of a wake-up call for people all around the world to start thinking a bit better where they spend their money. I keep repeating this recently a lot, because I get asked this question a lot: what is sustainability? What is sustainable? And then at the end of the day, it's really the impact that we make is like when we choose where we spend our money. As a private person and as a business owner, when you make this choice, you can really make an impact. And I think that hopefully this situation, unfortunate situation with the whole pandemic, at least trigger that in people. So they're gonna ask themselves a bit more if they're gonna go to a bar owned by a local person here who really lives from that, or they're gonna go to a big chain and spend their money there. So yeah.
Definitely. I think, and one of the points that you highlighted, I think we touched upon it before, is sometimes as consumers, especially if you're not, like consider people that are not involved in the fashion sphere or that do not follow eco bloggers or fashion bloggers that are more into sustainability. Sometimes it's, unless it makes the news, you're not really aware of the Transparency Index or the Fashion Revolution movement. So for you that you're more involved in that sphere, either Mariel, maybe you want to say any other campaign or options that people can follow to kind of like be more on the loop?
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the future fashion and then connect with some initiatives. I mean, for my side, I think that regenerative fashion and restorative fashion is gonna be the way to go. And this is all embedded to circular fashion. We'll try to find ways and how you're gonna reuse or use already products or materials that are already on here. Another thing is for the future is to slow down and to continue creating products and designs that can last forever. And this is the philosophy of the slow fashion. It's really important to understand that we cannot continue producing for different seasons. And there is a global initiative called Rewiring Fashion, for example. So you're seeing like these designers that were not involved in this ecosystem of sustainability are taking some sort of action. So a lot of things needs to happen. So by being said this, the global agenda is one of these initiatives that are taking us huge companies, retailers getting together and say, hey, we need to lower down our water consumption and working on renewing energy and working with solar panel solutions, because otherwise we will not have a sustainable future. So I see a lot of commitment onto the sustainability agenda. So it's just a matter of really track down, monitor, and make things happen. So I'm really looking forward to see, for example, with Kerry, with the Conscious Fashion campaign, how is retailers and brands driving these commitments into real action, so consumers can say, hey, okay, there is an improvement. Because so far what we're seeing is over the shallow, like we're saying some things in the account, but then you find on the media that most of them were not paying their workers. There's not in the report fair wages report, etc. So there are a lot of things to do, but there are some initiatives. Another one was the one that I found today with Fashion for Good, which is located in Amsterdam. They have like a circular textile initiative with the Caring company and luxury company and different retailers and suppliers, so they can create more circular fashion solutions. That was one of them. And last but not least, on the consumption side, there are companies that now they are tracking their supply chain. They are trying to see where are they creating more climate impact. And this is Asket, for example. They have launched the digital receipt, where you buy a garment and you get the digital receipt of how much that garment has cost really in terms of water consumption, energy, wages, etc., etc. So that's really interesting. It was launched today by Asket, and you can read about that. So people are now looking for information, and they understand that it has to be a relationship with the consumer, with the producer, and with the brand and the government. So it has to be a joint responsibility if we want to really see a future in fashion.
Definitely. I think transparency, as we were touching upon before, is one of the things that's really lacking and that we really need more of in the industry. So going forward, Bojana, I just wanted, taking the advantage, I know that some of the people who joined our festival are also designers or people who are creatives and are starting to get more involved into sustainability. What are one of the things that you would share with or advice for up and coming designers as they want to be more sustainable? Anything from your learnings and your experience?
Well, I think they need to be well informed. They need to learn. Knowledge always is the key for everything, I guess. Try to follow up on new innovations, technologies, and try to implement that into their work. Also, it's very important. It's a harsh work, and I think we have to be aware that we cannot do everything right now. But if we have one subject that we have more affinity for, we should just like really focus on that and go for it. And then once that's done, go on the other one, and step by step change things and make them better.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like even during our conversation here, we can kind of see the different passions that you both have and how you've channeled that to the kind of response that you've had. You design your own zero waste pattern, Bojana. Mariel, you're really passionate about linking Latin America and EU and supporting local creatives. So it's really good to see that regardless of what your affinity is, you can kind of bring that to the table and propose a solution for the sustainability and fashion. So in case you didn't know, the floor is open if you want to start asking questions. I see that Lara already has one here for you guys. So she's asking, how do you think that we can prevent big companies to just shift their market to emerging countries where sustainability and fashion is not even a topic? So I don't know if either of you has any comments related to that.
I don't think we should stop. I think we should work together into finding suitable solutions. I'm not saying about launching conscious collections only, but really finding ways to collaborate together in a mindful way. I mean, this is maybe not an example really connected to it, but have you seen Naek, the Slow Factory, for example, this great organization that creates a lot of activities and education? They have built a whole system for us to educate for free with BIPOC communities, no, like indigenous colored people that are leading the space in sustainability, but they are being backing up, of course, by retailers and brands. But that investment is being used to hire and to build these resources for all of us to be inclusive. So one of the ways to co-create together should be like that. We cannot just leave them behind and go to bankruptcy and everything.
Yeah.
We need to build solutions together and teach them. If we know how to do it, or we think we know, it is a step towards together because it is an ecosystem. At the end, everybody has to be involved, interconnected, and joint responsibility. Otherwise, it's not going to work. But as long as Bojana said, was very interesting, like education, research based on your values and passions, that is what is important because at the end, you have the solution, you have the answer. Cast with your vote. If the demand does buy less, they will not have any other room that join the sustainability wagon. Versus fashion shouldn't be sustainable fashion. It should be fashion, should be sustainable, and it should be the norm.
Yeah, exactly. That's and what I always like to say: try to be creative and use these advantages of sustainable fashion, of doing fashion sustainably, as your advantages.
That's so good. Yeah, it's kind of seeing the bright side of bringing something different to the table.
Yeah, because it also can take you other ways, that normally you wouldn't go. So.
Yeah, and just to add on what you were saying, like I think I would even argue, even if we're talking about sustainable fashion, we do need to include people that are maybe not into fashion per se, but they have other skills that also affect what we're doing, whether it's collecting better data or resources to get transparency, supporting and advising companies, and so on. So it's good to kind of like include this and open the floor for people with different backgrounds. Here we have another question from Lilian. She's asking, do you think that the fashion industry will change after COVID-19?
Well, we touched this subject a little bit before. Yeah, I don't think it's going to change just from 2020 to 2021, but I think there's going to be some significant changes. I think we already see it, especially season-wise, and for example, in my neighborhood, so it was in my neighborhood, there's stores that sell famous fashion designers already for decades, since the 80s, like Mariel and so on. And this, after the COVID, they started selling in season. So that was a really big change, so I really was happy to see that happening.
Yeah, great.
Definitely. And also we're seeing now more digital transformation as well, and trying also to find ways to reduce environmental impact and energy impact through also digital aspects. So people are starting to see how can we work better towards fashion, because we cannot lose something. Creativity, inspiration, still fashion should be aspirational, it cannot be taken away from it. So we need to find like ways to collaborate together into building a systemic change in fashion. And that's the only ways through collaboration And the other way that is going to take the next step is to continue listening and working together instead of bashing each other. It's like, let's find ways together now. You got the R&D, the innovation, you got the technology, but I have the sustainability to deepen since the beginning. What can we do together? And that's what we try to do when we work with brands, even companies and textile industry. It's like, listen to us. We might have something to say to you, you know?
Yeah.
We talk with alpaca industry, imagine that. It's like 30 guys saying, okay, what do you have to say about this? It's like, it's so important that we all work together, agencies, designers, big companies, textiles producers, everybody, so we find solutions together. So those sort of platforms like Zero Waste Berlin Festival is so important because then it drives to more collaboration, it drives to more action.
Yes, thank you for saying that. But yeah, like that's one of the great things for having the connectivity here. I think people can go into your profiles and follow you both to kind of continue this conversation.
Yeah.
We have a few more minutes, but we have another question here from Caroline. She's saying, what do you think about the big fast fashion companies communicating much more about their sustainability collections, but still they process too much collections in a year and they didn't change that actually? Do you think that they will change that in the future, or is it just pure greenwashing? I don't know if either of you has any comments on that. Probably you've seen the conscious H&M line or some fast fashion brands that have a recycling system where you take back your clothing and you get a voucher to keep consuming their fast fashion brand, but they don't really change their business models in general.
I mean, here in Sweden, for example, we did an event last year with H&M, and we addressed those questions to them. And basically, they do have the H&M Foundation as well, where they invest on projects and initiatives, and for startups and emerging, you could say, innovators itself. So they are trying very hard to make their statement work, but I do believe that it doesn't go with volume production and sustainability alongside if you are not controlling your first tier, second tier, and third tier. I mean, control is not only about the first supply chain you have and then not having any control on the rest. So I feel that there is an interest, a need, but the only way to separate from greenwashing is it takes, as Bojana said, it will take time, and we need to hold them accountable, ask questions, and always research. That's the best way, because at the end, it doesn't matter the good intentions. What matters is great actions. So I would say it's impossible to say who is greenwashing or not as consumers, but at the end, if you ask, definitely you will get them assessed. Because right now it's all about measurement, it's all about holding them accountable, and waking up and saying, hey, what are you doing here? This is not true. So it's up to us also to demand information.
Yeah, I think it's like, what I would like to see is just pure data. Like, what is the percentage of the fabrics they buy, or like places where they produce? Go from Kering Group to H&M, doesn't matter, but I want to see pure data. What is the percentage exactly what they're doing sustainably, and how also in detail? So I think it's still very, very low. So I would call it greenwashing.
Yes, I don't know if you are aware of it. I believe it's in the McKinsey that publishes yearly their report on the state of fashion. And I think we were talking about it before, but the top 20 players include fast fashion brands and luxury brands, Nike, Inditex, Louis Vuitton, Kering, etc. And usually when you see across the years, they don't shift that much. So it's usually the same biggest companies driving the biggest impact. So it's definitely moving forward, trying to keep them accountable and increase the transparency.
Exactly.
So as we're closing, I know Lara has one of the last questions. I don't know, Bojana, if you want to go for it. She's asking, how do you think that young consumers be convinced to buy less in general, since they have a higher pressure of being on trend? And I think it links to people keeping their same consuming habits, even if it's more driven by agencies making it normal to buy more often or more repeatedly.
Well, I think we need to communicate that all these trends that they don't really mean anything, and we need to communicate more how important is for brands to not make seasons, no, and that we need to communicate the value of the product. Like really, the young people are majority of people in general are not aware of the supply chain of a product in fashion, and this is something that we need to communicate better. I think people, young or old, doesn't matter, they need to be aware of this process that goes from the field, I don't know, in Africa, all the way to, and all the transport costs and all these things. People are not aware of it, and this is something that we need to work on. We really need to communicate that very good, so people can really feel guilty if they buy something and they don't really cherish that product and wear it as long as they can, or take a good care of it and everything that comes with it.
Yeah, just adding on what you're saying, because as for me, I'm not involved in fashion, or at least I was not before. So getting started to see how do I change the habits that I've grown up with, basically, and how do I change my actions. One of the things that really helped me was basically, especially when it comes to social media, is unfollow every account that just promotes consumerism. So anything that's not aligned with my values, and make sure that I'm getting connected, basically what we're doing here, with people like you from Slow Fashion World, Mariel, or you, Bojana, people that inspire, that teach, that share, and kind of keep this ongoing, because it's not a shift from one day to another, definitely, as you keep kind of learning and surrounding yourself with people that can kind of like be on the same wavelength, if you will.
Yeah, you see, you found your way, so everybody is gonna, step by step find the
I'm getting inspired and motivated, so I highly recommend. I mean, I'm not advertising. Aya Barber is amazing. How to teach you since the beginning to the end. Aditi Mejia from USA, connecting her roots from her cultural roots to slow fashion. Let's talk about intersectional environment, and let's talk about the importance of consuming less and cherishing more with a conscious closet campaign, a slow fashion season. There is a lot of things. So I will be happy to share my presentation and share the links to the public that wants to, because there is a lot of inspiring people. If you want to be on Vogue and you want to still dress good, I mean, right now is the hashtag secondhand September.
Yeah.
You can check that in social media and also find beautiful ways to find clothes and dress and style by also cherishing secondhand clothes.
Yes, definitely. And thank you so much for your time here at the Fireside Chat. I think we have to get a closing on soon. But
thank you so much.
For everybody who wants to continue the conversation, I shared both of your links so people can follow you and kind of see and learn more about what you're about. Again, if you go here to the link in People, you can search for them and get their links directly. So thank you for your time, both.
Thank you so much. Bye. Gracias.
Adios. Bye-bye. Okay, so I hope you were all inspired as a little bit we talked about fashion. I would like to welcome Coral back. Hi, Coral.
Hi, Naek. Thank you so much. There has been amazing, really good talk.
Awesome. We'll leave you to the last presentation.